My name is Josh Tanner. I wear several different hats, but one of them is working with a company called CartoLab. They're based out of South Carolina, near where Justin Bieber just got married. So if there's any believers out there, this is close. This is close to home. And so one of the projects that we're working on is called Snapshots by CartoLab, and this is a utility built for ArcGIS Online. We have on here ArcGIS Online Content backup and restoration. And what that means, first, who uses ArcGIS Online in this room? So it's a majority of people. That's kind of the go-to platform now for a lot of GIS. It does three different things primarily, and each have unique problems that they're trying to solve. It creates backups. So a backup is essentially, and in here they're called snapshots. A backup is an item at a specific point in time for your ArcGIS Online content. This idea of cloning backups, so you can take one of your snapshots that you had taken in the past, and you could build a brand new item from it, even if that original item had been deleted. So you can imagine you were working on a project, accidentally deleted it, or intentionally deleted it, thinking you would never go back to it, and then it was removed. You usually have no recourse, but if you created a backup of it, then you could recreate it later on really easily. And this idea of being able to restore from backup, so this is a little bit of that concept of being able to use version control. So let's say you're working on a project and your manager says, I want you to make these changes. You make the changes. He says, those look like crap. You say, well, that's what you told me to do. He's like, change it back to what you had. There's no way to really do that currently in ArcGIS Online, so that's another thing that we're trying to solve with this product. And so the login is you log in with your ArcGIS Online username. So here's an account that I've got set up. If you don't have any snapshots, originally it'll go to this page that has a couple links on the top, apps, maps, and feature services. These are the two that we currently support, or the three that we currently support, and apps are kind of a catch-all for a lot of things like story maps and different things. So you can go to your apps. It's going to pull from your ArcGIS Online content. You're going to see the items that you own under your user. I've got an item here that I set up specifically for this presentation. I'll sign in. This is just the most basic story map that you could ever create. It's essentially a landing page, says Esri GeoDev PDX meetup. We've got some text underneath, and if you scroll down, we've got a web map with a feature service that's just the point that says where this location is. And so let's say this is where you're at with your current development of making this story map for a particular project. If you're used to using version control, this kind of makes a little bit of sense. So if you got this idea of this is almost like your message, like a git commit message. And so you can say like draft version 1 story map for GeoDev. Your title can be something a little bit more simple. You can just say version 1. And you'll submit this, which essentially what this did is it took the underlying JSON behind that application and it copied it over to a database. And so now if something ever happened to that original item, you don't really have to worry because it is backed up into this database here. If you look at the snapshot, you can see it contains all of the original JSON from that item, the description, which is essentially like your actual item page, and then your data, which is going to be all of the configuration information that goes into building that story map. So for example, we had the subtitle, which was Story Maps for Snapshots Demo. You can see it here. It's nice because you can actually just copy the JSON here. If you ever just wanted access to the original JSON, if something ever happened to the app, you can grab it from here. But let's say, for example, you had a manager that said, well, this background that you have for this presentation, it's not really Oregon specific, so I recommend that you make a change to this background. So you can go into here for the cover, we can edit it, change the background. We'll just pull something from Unsplash. I'll type in Oregon. We'll just grab a different background. Maybe we'll clean up this text a little bit, capitalize this, make some changes to there, and then we'll save our new item. So if we go to our live item, it should show these new changes. So now we've got a very Oregon-specific story map. And we'll go back into Snapshots. We'll go to our applications. You can see because we already have a snapshot, it tells us when the last snapshot was taken. This is almost like when your last git commit was registered. I'll say, let's create a new snapshot. We'll say this is version 2. Give it some information. Say we changed the background to Oregon specific and updated the subtitle. We'll submit this snapshot. And now you'll see that under my snapshots page, I've got 2 different snapshots here. If I look into the new snapshot that we just took, and snapshot is our specific term. It's really it's a backup of your content. We thought snapshot was kind of catchy. If you go into here, you can see that we've got our updated information here about the subtitle, and then wherever the URLs for Unsplash for the background photo, you'll see in this new item. And so what happens if this was a lot of effort? Right now we just made a couple changes, but if you got some feedback from your management that said, look, we told you to do all these changes, they just didn't turn out the way that we anticipated. And if you're a developer, you know how this means. People always think that they know the best way to put something together or develop it, and then you do it, and they're like, that's not really what I wanted. So what you can do is you can go into the apps that you have in Snapshots, and you can go to this Restore from Snapshots item. So if we were told that we want to revert back to the state of our first snapshot, the version 1, we just go back here, restore to snapshot. You get a little message that says it's been restored to version 1. If we go to the live item, refresh it, it shows what we had for the first version of that item. And then, if they say, well, actually, I really liked what you had before, then we go to restore to snapshot. We go back here, and we've got the version 2, which is pretty helpful to be able to do. And then one of the things that is really helpful is, let's say this is something that we had been working on for months. We put everything together. There's a lot of content. It's really good. Maybe we even had delete protection on here, but for some reason we forced a delete, or somebody accidentally went in and deleted the item, not realizing that this was the story map, because it could be that they have 10 different items in there. Like, we'll delete this one. It's an old one. Then you realize, oh no, that was our production application that I just deleted. If this were the world of ArcGIS Online without something like Snapshots, right now you're screwed because you've got no recourse. If I go to refresh my map, it says an error has occurred, the story map cannot be loaded. There's no history that map ever existed. There's no version in ArcGIS Online. But the nice thing is because we did take a snapshot of it, we can go back to the snapshot, whichever one we want. We'll say, version 2 was the final version that we had taken the snapshot. The item no longer exists in ArcGIS Online, but all of the configuration exists in the database in Snapshots. I'll go in here and I'll build a new item. It says success, new item created from Snapshot. You'll go to the item page. I'll log in. And here's the new item in ArcGIS Online. It's a brand new item that it created. This is the clone. You can change it. Change the title if you want to. Save it. And now let's go to view the application. And we've just restored an application that had previously been deleted. And so that's kind of the workflow of how all this works. And the nice thing is you can create snapshots as you go throughout an application. So if you want to revert back to something because somebody wanted to make some changes, or even if you had the same timeline history for a single app that was still live in ArcGIS Online, but you maybe said, well, where we were at this state, I kind of want to clone or fork a new application from where it was at that state. You could do that in here. Right now we just did apps, but you can also do this with maps and also feature services. This is really helpful for, right now we just have the one point, which is the GeoDev location. And we'll say, what is it, December?
It used to be.
Some typo there, but it's okay. And so I'll go into, so I just created a backup of it. What it's doing right now, when we do a backup or a snapshot of the apps and the maps, it's storing it into a database on our end. But when we do a backup of feature service, it's actually doing a export to a file geodatabase in your account, so it lives with your account. And a lot of that is for security, so that you actually still own that data. And what we have here, once it loads, Esri, right now what it's doing, it's checking client side for Esri to do the export of the file geodatabase. And that usually takes a minute for that status to be updated. Okay, it's updated here. And the nice thing is we can go into this feature service, download the file geodatabase from that version. We have some information about it. And you can also publish a new feature service from the data at this state. This is really helpful. I do some volunteering for GIS Core, and they do this co-op petition. Like every now and then, they've got an Esri story map where people upload pictures and some information about things that they did that were really compassionate, like compassionate acts. And it's kind of like competition, but they call it co-opetition. People are trying to do really good things and put that information out there in those pictures so their friends and stuff can find it. And so you've got cities competing. But the thing is, it's the same feature service, but all of that information gets erased every time they have a new co-opetition. So I can create a backup at the end of every one of those. And if at any point I wanted to relaunch the data at that point, I could do it. And so that's the gist of it. Hopefully that stayed within 5 minutes. But
you're a little bit over, but I think that's fine.
But yeah, it's really cool. Really simple, but really target-oriented into solving a particular problem that I know I've had problems with. We've seen the community have problems with on GeoNet. And we're just trying to put something out there for people to use and people to help manage their content at more of kind of an enterprise level with backup capabilities.
How can people find out more about Snapshots by CartoLab? You guys have a webpage or something with pricing models?
Right now, all this is free, and it just works with ArcGIS Online. It does not work with Portal yet. That's kind of one of the things that we can expand out to in the future. And so right now, we call it beta. Beta essentially means we're actively in development, and what we're really hoping for is input from the community. We have heard that this is something that people would like to see solved, and we're trying to make our best effort to put something that's not necessarily scripts that you have to run on your local computer. It's something that's more of a point and click, works really well for your organization, and put it out there. But we really want input. That's something that's really important to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. If you go into the About section, it gives some information about it, and it's snapshots.cartolab.com. And if you see at the bottom here, this will take you over to the CartoLab page, which has an input form. And you could also, any of us on CartoLab on Twitter, and I'm Tanner Geo on Twitter. If you guys have a question about it, feel free to ask. We've got some basic tutorials that I just put up on there that explain basically what we just did on how to do each one of those steps. And because it works with your ArcGIS Online account, you don't have to do anything else about registering or creating an account. You just log in with your ArcGIS Online.
You're not storing any data.
It is storing, when you do a backup.
Geodata.